Topic today is darkness is merely the absence of light. And this is a famous quote by Albert Einstein, the physicist. But my quote comes from Marianne Williamson because she takes it a step further, more likely that we're more likely to understand it in the context of science of mind. She says, darkness is merely the absence of light, and fear is merely the absence of love. If we want to rid ourselves of fear, we cannot fight it, but must replace it with love. And this is a journey to understand and live by this quote, because our natural instinct is to fight it. As a matter of fact, fear is and can be a provoker of our emotions. And so when we learn that we can overcome these lower frequency emotions of fear, anger, shame, guilt, when we begin to master that and recognize that our true power comes from the higher frequencies which are associated with light, and those frequencies are love, joy, peace, power, and enlightenment. And so our whole journey is about going up those chakras, if you will, or increasing our energy vibration to the higher levels. But we must understand that this matrix is fear-based. It is a provoker. And once we come up higher in these consciousness, we can be on an eagle's perch, looking at the matrix from outside of it and seeing the chaos that's generated from the lower frequencies. This is our journey. And I want to also preface this teaching by saying that this is a higher level teaching, meaning that when you go to college, you'll notice that there are courses that say, oh, there's a prerequisite. Darn it, I've got to take addition and subtraction before I can do algebra. Oh, I've got to do Algebra 101 before I can do calculus. So what I'm saying to you is, if you're a beginner, none of you are, but if you're a beginner, then these teachings won't make sense. And it won't be on the frequency of victimization, which a lot of people are tuned into that frequency. And so higher levels of frequency, they don't understand, they don't get, it's woo-woo. And we've heard that before. So it's not going to connect with everybody. But I know that in my spiritual journey, when I would tune into a teacher and they would be talking about forgiveness, I would be like, okay, I've got that, let's move on. So this is a higher level teaching, and it's only just to say that if you have trauma from childhood, that needs to be dealt with. That's going to still keep you in that victim lower frequency. Let's deal with that. I've made several videos on forgiveness, releasing your trauma, working on that inner work. So I'm assuming and knowing for a fact that everyone here has done inner work. We're ready for some other teaching. We're ready for those graduate level teachings that let us know we're on the right track, but maybe nobody's talking about it. So first of all, I want to say that I'm going to give you a visual and an example when I'm talking about these frequencies. That helps because we can use our imagination a lot of the times, and a lot of the times when we're reading something, it can seem pretty abstract. But I want to give you a visual because I'm a visual learner too. And so this is a visual chart that I'm going to show you that has to do with frequencies. Now this chart that you're looking at was done by Mr. Hawkins, and he has done a whole bunch of lifetime work on frequencies, what they mean and what you can derive from them. So as you can see on this chart, anything below courage is a lower frequency. This is going to cause what? chaos, destruction, and you don't have to look very far to see how that manifests itself in this world. Or you just turn on the TV, or maybe you have a neighbor, or maybe in your family, or maybe in yourself. You can see when these things, emotions pop up in others or in yourself, they can provoke an energy that will dictate what your next experience will be. As a matter of fact, Lynn, I think earlier in the meditation you were talking about our thoughts broadcast our next experience. So our thoughts are major broadcasters. What are they broadcasting? Well, if they're broadcasting the lower frequencies, it's going to determine what your next experience is going to be. This is how the universe reflects back to us what we've been thinking, what we've been frequencing with, what our tone is. And so this is a really great learning tool that the universe has provided to us as long as we're awake enough, aware enough to change our frequency, come up higher, and create from there. Now that's why I said there are prerequisites to this, because if you're still stuck in shame, guilt, fear, you don't understand that you have the power to create something different. That victimization keeps you stuck in lower frequencies. And what happens with that? You contribute to the collective frequency. So you may say, oh, I'm not into all of that chaos and blah, blah, blah. But if you are generating that within your thoughts, within your family, within your friends, you are contributing to the collective lower frequency vibrations of anger, shame, guilt, all of that. And then it's manifested and reflected back. And if we're not learning to go within ourselves and say, what are some of the things that I can do to come up higher in those frequencies, then we can stay stuck in that victimization. So here's the good news. When you've been doing your inner work and you've been studying science of mind and you have your practices in place and you are embodying those teachings, not just talking about them, not just reading a book or going to a webinar, but you're actually becoming the love of Christ. You're actually becoming and birthing the Christ within yourself. Then you're up in those higher frequencies of love, joy, acceptance, peace. And what can you do with that? Well, off to the side, you'll notice that that's a creative energy. We create from those energies. So God is love. God is the master creator. And created who? Created us. From what? Love frequency. So we are love frequency in our DNA. What can we do with that? We can create the next moment that we experience. We can create the world we want to live in. We can take all of that love and creativity, put it into the collective, because we're broadcasters, and we contribute to the good. Now, the evolution of this is not going to be televised. So if you turn on the news, you're not going to hear about the resonant frequency of love changing the world. You're not. What you're going to hear is the lower frequency screaming its death blows. And it's going to be more chaotic. Why? Because the love frequency is actually getting stronger. More people are waking up, but you're not going to hear about it on the news. Because if it bleeds, it leads. People tune into fear. This is a fear-based matrix. So you can't measure whether the Christ, the second coming of Christ is here or not on the news or in the newspaper. How you're going to find it is when your thoughts are in alignment with God and your next experiences are showing that love is all there is. This is key. This is why this is a higher teaching, because it's not about reading a book. God didn't say, oh, you should read that book so you can get to higher levels of consciousness. You should go to that webinar and hear that person speak so you can get to higher levels of consciousness. What God is saying is that you already have everything you need to get to higher levels of consciousness. It's in your DNA. I created you from that. That is all you are. All you have to do is recognize that is the matrix, and you are more powerful than that, and start living that way. This is a powerful teaching. So if you want to get this chart and ask yourself daily, what are my thoughts? How loving are they? I feel hurt today. What is the most loving thing I can do to snap out of the lower frequencies? This is about embodying the teachings. Thank you for the chart, but you can go online and find that chart. It's David R. Hawking's work of the frequency chart, and it can be very helpful on your refrigerator, just a constant reminder that our DNA is stimulated by the higher chakras, by the higher frequencies that we inhabit, and our thoughts can be in alignment with that. When it is, you'll notice that it will dictate the next moments that you experience, the next people, because your frequencies will be aligned with that. Now, many of you know that I went to Ethiopia. I just got back a couple of days ago. It was a fantastic, emotional, spiritual, transformational experience. And there were many things that I learned along the way. Briefly, one of the things was that, I wrote the I Am Solution, which is about knowing who you are, getting your identity from the highest source possible, which is God. And so in Ethiopia, the people there are Jewish Orthodox Christians. And the reason that they identify like that is because they believe that they are part of the line of Judah, the Lion of Judah, meaning they are the lineage of Jesus. So Jesus was Jewish. He also created this thing we call Christianity. And so they are Orthodox Christians that are Jewish. And instead of 66 chapters in the Bible that we have in the United States, they have 100. They have ancient Christian texts that are not included in our Bible. And they are really faithful with their religious orientation. And what happens when you believe and know that you are part of the lineage of Jesus? That takes it to a whole nother level, because that is part of your DNA is God. And so how do the people react to that? Well, I found the people to be kind, to be considerate, to be patient in huge amounts of chaotic traffic. I never heard anybody yell or scream or honk their horn in anger, and no dents in the car, by the way. That's big. So these people really do embody what it means to be a descendant of God. Now, we're all descendants of God, but how does that show up in our countenance, in our character, in everyday life? That is the question. That's for those higher teachings. Now, I did have an experience in Ethiopia that I'd like to share that hopefully brings this home. I had an experience that when I came back, people were saying, well, how was your trip? So I got back about 4 days ago. People were like, how was your trip? And I said, wait a minute, I've got to process this. And a lot of times I can't process with people. I need to go within and say, what was that all about? So that's what I've been doing for the past 4 days. As a matter of fact, the first time I've talked about this was last night with my son. And he said, yeah, Mom, I knew something was going up. I knew you couldn't tell me right away. So I talked to him last night and was able to share what I'm about to share with you. And so you're really the only people that I've really shared this with in this context. So this trip to Ethiopia, I met up with people that I didn't know on a small group tour. So I go to Ethiopia and then I meet up with 10 people. 6 were from the UK, 4 were from the United States. We had a beautiful tour guide and a driver, and we went all over Ethiopia. So I started out the trip, and this is me taking responsibility, very judgy. Now, judgy means like you have a judgmental mind and you're judging certain things about maybe the group. And I was judgy. The coronation was going on. I not anymore, had a strong opinion about the monarchy, colonization, all of that. So I was judgy. I need to exclaim that because remember when I said that what your frequency is going to determine the next situation that you encounter? What do you think I encountered the rest of most of the trip? I encountered judgy people. What was the universe showing me? Reflecting back to me what I had put out there on the table. This is how the universe shows us and teaches us what we're doing. Otherwise, we wouldn't know. But you have to be at a stage of awakening. That's why I keep going back to this is a prerequisite. Most people are asleep to their thoughts and how they create their next reality. So here I am. I was judgy. Now I'm being faced with at least 10 people that are judgy. Judging the culture of Ethiopia in front of me, judging slavery, you name it. Whatever trigger I had was going to be pushed because I was trying to push triggers with my judgment. So here it is being reflected back to me. So at one point, there was a particular person in the group, and because I have a lot of mother love energy, a lot of the Virgin Mother, Godhead, feminine love energy within me, I saw this person in all of his frailties. I saw that he was over 75. I saw that he was a former Marine. I saw that he would get inebriated every night. Why do people do that? Well, to cover pain. So I could feel his when he was being rude to everyone and was drunk. He said a name to me outside of my name. Let me just say this, it wasn't Dr. Karmen Smith. So he called me out of my name. It was a rude name. And what I heard myself saying was, that was not very polite to say. Then I could see him trying to say something else, meaning to make it. So let me clarify. Sometimes people will say things that are rude, and then they will attack you for thinking that it's rude or taking offense. So I know that game. I wasn't going to play it. And I said, that was not a very polite thing to say. So I said that about 4 times because there was an attempt on his part to maybe justify what he was saying. Now let me go deeper with this teaching. I was sitting across from him. It's kind of a blur because there was an energy that was coming from me that was directed at him, but also directed at the table. There was a long table where we were sitting, so it was directed at the table and everything. So I said it 4 times, but like I said, at the same time, there's this energy and this power that was coming off of me to him and to everyone to the room. After I said that, there was silence. I think I took another bite of food and I was done and I went to my room. During the night, there was arguing. So we were at a lodge in Ethiopia where you could hear everything. And there was arguing between this person, this former Marine full of pain that was drunk, and another person in the group. And because I wasn't tuned into that frequency, I could hear the noise, but I wasn't picking up on any words, but I just wasn't in that frequency to even be interested. Because when you're not on the lower frequencies, you really can't, it's like the peanuts, womp, 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 womp. It just doesn't resonate with you. And so I was in my room going, what was that? Was I angry? And I took an inventory and I said, I wasn't angry. I was very calm, but I was firm. And you know, there's the word firm in affirmations. I was very firm, but I felt like I was affirming no more. This person had been through 75 years of pain, of lower frequency vibration. And let me take it to a step deeper. I created him. See, that's going to blow your mind. But we're master creators. And I created him for that group. Why? So you can see that's what I was thinking about all night. I wasn't thinking about the argument. I'm on a different frequency. I'm like, if I'm the creator of my world, those 10 people were my creation. That person with pain, I created, that was rude and drank every night. I conjured him up. So I didn't know why until the next day. The next day I came down to breakfast. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. We were on a van together. So for 9 days, I was with this person. And on the 9th day is when this thing happened. We had 4 more days together. And so at breakfast, I came down and he needed a menu. And I had the menu and I handed it to him. As soon as I handed it to him, it was like the spell was broken. He was kind the rest of the trip. He looked out for me. Karmen, are you going to get off the van to get a picture of this? Are you sure? He was more caring, and I saw a transformation in him. But there's so many things, you can tell why I needed to process this for 4 days, because there's so much that pours out of this lesson. One of the things is that energy that affirmation of no more was not about, you shouldn't talk to me about that. That would be Karmen talking. What God is saying is no more pain. What God is saying is, Karmen, you don't have to play out this scenario anymore. It's broken. That's how powerful we are. I didn't need to play out a scenario of me going through Africa being victimized again. I made that up and it materialized. And what happened after I came down to breakfast and from the whole 4 days afterwards was there was a kind man there. It was no longer broken, didn't need to be rude. I didn't need to be a victim of that scenario anymore. So it was gone. So I could have come here and said, oh, there were rude people and I just changed it around with my powers and they became nice. No, I was judgy. I was in a lower frequency. And I had to say at the table, no more. Karmen. See, we always think that it's directed at the person. I could always say, well, it was him. He was drunk. He was rude. And I did say all of that. But the bottom line is, who conjured him up? Who made him up? So I had to also break the spell of me. You don't have to do that. This can be turned around. You have the power to do that. This is a higher level teaching. Because I'm not a victim in any story. Not if I'm a child of God. The only time I can be a victim is when I forget who I am and I go down to those lower frequencies. But let me tell you, there's a power within you that you can bring yourself back up again and snap yourself right out of it. And I did. So is it a story about his transformation? Well, there is no his. It's only one. It's only one of us here. Isn't that what we teach? Oneness? The illusion is that I can always point the finger and say, well, it was him, him, him. But that's not true. It was me creating a scenario with these 10 people. And I could have this great, great scenario where everyone is love and peace. Or I could have this other story where everybody is just so chaotic. But the truth is, I created the chaos, but I can also uncreate it. And that's what happened. So the rest of the trip was fabulous. It was nurturing. I saw a difference in character in me and in those around me. And so I want to go back to that quote that Marianne Williamson did. Darkness is merely the absence of light, and fear is merely the absence of love. If we want to be rid of fear, we cannot fight it, but must replace it with love. And I needed to replace the frequency that I was generating with love. And it made all the difference. And I put that into the collective. Let's take a deep breath. I'm just so grateful today that we have a loving universe that gives us such beautiful lessons. If we can only see them, if we can only experience them on a deep level and awaken to who we truly are. That's what these lessons are all about. Knowing that after each one, we come up higher in our vibrational frequency, and that does make a difference in the collective chaos. Because you see, the chaos cannot stand when we are vibrating at the frequency of our Creator. It has no purpose. It has no power unless we give it power. Knowing who we truly are every day, moment by moment. And then when we forget, or we are tired, or when we feel our most vulnerable, we can always come back to the truth. Love is all there is. That's the truth of who we are. We embody that in the silence. Deep breath. We recognize that we are always coming up higher and higher and higher in those frequencies that let us recognize the true nature of our being. That there is only one love, one life. And every day, in every moment, I let it be so. And so it is.